Usually I like bounce around. Oh, we're live. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hey, Jessie. And hello, everybody that is going to be tuning in as soon as the algorithms let you know that there's not one, but two goddess witches coming at you live today to talk to you about some amazing information for you women out there. Oh my God, I sound like an infomercial. Can I just like reel that back? Like, this is amazing. We're going to be talking to you today about Goddess Wife School, but one of my favorite lessons from Goddess Wife School and something that Jessie has mastered like amazing, which is why that I wanted her to be here. Jessie is a treasured alumni from my Goddess Wife School program. She's also a money witch. So she's a very powerful creatrix and human being. And I wanted her to come on today because she's an open book and she likes to talk about everything and going on with her to teach because you're a healer too. And I've watched Jessie transform so many amazing aspects in her relationship and in her personal life and also in her business that a lot of women out there think are impossible to change, especially because when you're in a relationship with somebody else, you can't control another person. You can try to get them to do what you want them to do, but a lot of times they'll feel like manipulated or pushed back, or those kinds of strategies don't work. And we're going to be talking about energy today, sexual chemistry today, money making today, and other badass witchery stuff. Jessie, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me, bathrobe and all. I'm so excited.
I love it. I love it because right on our Goddess Wife calls and in my groups, you can show up with anything, like whatever.
Anything, yeah.
Right?
Yes, yeah. And I just I've got my self-love essential oil spray all over me. So I'm feeling this today. So I'm excited to talk about all of this because I think it's a lot of information I didn't know before we worked together. And so much of it, just like me coming in with that money lens to your program, like I really saw so much overlap between the two. And it's funny because I talk all the time and say money and love are always connected. In my opinion, I think it's because Venus rules both. Venus rules our values. And so it makes sense that money and love are always tied together. And I'll say when I teach money manifestation to people that a lot of times, sometimes you'll get tests in love when you're trying to manifest money. And sometimes, you'll get like tests in business when you're trying to manifest love or you're trying to take things to the next level with your partner. But like you took that understanding to a new level with me.
Well, let's talk about that. First of all, you're already talking and I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but I'm having like all these mindgasms come up because as a lot of women may or may not know, every time I launch Goddess Wife School, I get in a huge kerfuffle or fight or some kind of struggle with my own husband, right? That forces me to up level, to grow, to heal. And that's so much of what I teach inside of Goddess Wife School is that your relationship is the ultimate container for healing and growth and expansion. Hey, oh my God, I totally forgot. If you're joining live, I see some comments already. Say hello. Let me know that you're here. We're talking about sex, chemistry, love, why your man should not be your BFF, how it's actually like neutering not only what's going on in the bedroom, but also what might be going on in your business. And I have the amazing Jessie DaSilva here, who's a money witch, among other fantastic things, an alumni of my program. So Jessie, I watched you basically instantaneously shift things in your relationship, like in a matter of an hour, not even like a day, hours, working with your energy and working with the understanding of the principles that you teach. Can you tell the audience, can you tell the women that might be watching, what is that deeper understanding that you got, right? Like we know that love and money are, there's a lot of power in both. They're really connected. Like what did you learn about your relationship with your masculine partner and your money making power as well?
So the main thing, and it's really funny because I feel like I'm talking about all the things that I teach, but I didn't realize that it never occurred to me to apply it to my relationship. So like the biggest thing, and this was just from like literally the first session of Goddess Wife School, was like basically all about like the intentions behind what we do in our relationships. And like I will never forget it. The first activity was like write down like what your view of like what you want your relationship to look like. And, at the time, and it seems so small, but like things that I wrote down were like, one thing I was like, he goes out and he brings back like a little gift or something, maybe even like a latte from Starbucks. He knows,
Right.
I love Starbucks' seasonal stuff. So I'm like counting down the days to pumpkin spice. So, so like something like that, or like, I had always felt like, my business was like a big antagonist in our relationship because it wasn't always stable. And like, it made him feel very insecure about like the inconsistency of money and things like that. And we weren't always on the same page with that. I used to think that he lived in scarcity mindset. Like I had all these misgivings, and, there was a lot of like, kind of like that X factor in the relationship was kind of missing, where it felt like we were living parallel lives, where It was like, we were like, it was like living with your best friend, really. That's like how it felt. And so when I sat down and thought about like, what do I want that relationship to look like? I came up with some specific examples, like he's actually supportive of my business, like he loves it, and he loves me pursuing it. And then another thing was looking at the intentions we carry when we're doing things and like being the partner that you want, meaning, because I had always heard that before, and I'm sure plenty of people have, but a lot of people interpret that meaning, I have to be my own partner. And I have to be the kind of partner I want to myself to see that in them. And what I learned is that breeds resentment, right? Because you're like, I'm going to buy myself my own flowers. That's bullshit. Like, that kind of thing. And what you helped me see was that it was like, if I want him to support my goals, how am I supporting his goals? And so it was such a tiny shift because and this is our example, because the thing that we struggle with the most is that I'm a messy person, or I will say I was a messy person, and he's like very neat and tidy. We both have anxiety disorders. And so with me, it's like, it manifests where it's like, I put on blinders. And so I just don't see mess anymore because I'm so focused on the things that I'm doing. And with him, it's like, and of course that's not the case because it makes me feel anxious too. It's just that I'm not paying attention to it. But with him, he really needs the space to be like clean and light and like feeling really good about that, to like stay more zen.
Right.
And so it would turn into like, he would wind up picking up all the slack, and because like I would get annoyed, and it turned into lots of tit for tat. Well, I did this, so you should be doing this, and blah, 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 like that. And I had a lot of resentment anytime I had to clean anything. And I was like, from this place of like, you knew I was messy when you got with me. Like, I've been messy all 4 years. So like, where is it? Like, why are you mad about it now? Like, we've been living together for years now. So like, why is this like now become a thing? And when we talked about like being the partner that you want, and me asking myself, how have I been supporting his dreams? And he's in the midst of getting a PhD program. Or not getting a PhD program. He's in a PhD program pursuing his PhD.
Right.
And I had this moment of clarity where I said, the way I can help him with that dream is literally to keep the house tidy. That's literally it. Like, that's what he's really asking me for. When he's asking me if I can like help clean up around the house, he's not saying you're a lazy piece of shit and I need to like remind you to clean up. He's literally saying, help me. Because this is something that's making it harder for me to pursue my dream.
And that's what a lot of, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to pull some genius out of there. Like, this is what a lot of us, where we get lost or stuck in our relationships, because most of us don't understand that, when you're in a container of growth, like a relationship, we're always triggering each other. That's actually like 100% part of the growth cycle. And that's something that you taught me about manifestation, Jessie. And this is another reason I love Goddess Wife School, because there's so many amazing women in the program that we're all teaching each other stuff all the time. You taught me that when you're manifesting things, the struggle is part of it. Like, look at part of the patterns for what takes you to growth. And we've been taught about relationships that we shouldn't fight, and that we should be happy all the time, and things should always be lovey-dovey, or like whatever we were taught by movies or mainstream media or society, or like all that pressure, right? And I can already hear how when you were talking, there was a a part of the feminine pain body that like got annoyed, like, oh, I need to clean for him. Like, I don't want to have to clean for a man. Like, why should I have to, right? Like that triggered kind of place of like, why do I have to? Why is it always on me? And I love inside of Goddess Wife School, the huge shifts that myself and a lot of women have had around like not doing it from a place of obligation or of self-punishment or of being like, you know, like being told by the patriarchy how we're supposed to be as women or wives or like whatever, but really doing it from that co-creative place of meeting together to be the partner that you want to be to the man that you want to be partnered with. Does that make sense how I explain that?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing too, is that like, for me, it was never really like a patriarchal thing, but it was like, you know, when we had started dating, this was before he went back to school. And so he was totally content being the main like caretaker in the home. We don't have kids, but I mean like keeping the home together, feeding the cat, like he was perfectly happy to do that. And when I was in a 9-to-5 job, it was like, I felt so supported and cared for. So of course, when things shift and it's like, now I'm running a business and I'm not necessarily the primary breadwinner, but like my career is requiring more focus. You know, I suddenly felt like we were both feeling betrayed. He felt like a lack of security because I had left like a high-powered law career. And then I was feeling unsupported because it's like all of a sudden he's saying, well, I don't want to be this caretaker anymore. I don't want to be doing all of this. But it's because he was now pursuing a new dream as well. Like he was getting his master's and then he was getting his PhD. And so for me, it was almost like bitterness over that shift where it was like, well, just because I work at home doesn't mean I should be the one doing yada yada. And like, and you know, the what those things allowed me to shift was like really carrying the intention. Like when I was literally putting dishes in the dishwasher and cleaning up the kitchen, I was literally sitting there with the like feeling in my heart of like, I'm helping him with his PhD right now. Like I'm helping him become a better writer and I'm helping him become like a better version of himself. And I do this because I know that he does this with me. And that was like, and it actually like, I'm going to get like a little literary now. So like, my absolute favorite Shakespeare comedy is Taming of the Shrew, which a lot of people think is like really offensive and like anti-feminist and all of this. And for those who aren't familiar with the story, it's basically like, if you've seen 10 Things I Hate About You, it's literally like the retelling of it. And so, you know, you have this like heinous bitch older sister who won't get married, so her younger sister can't get married. And so they marry her off to somebody who basically puts her through the ringer, like taming her, essentially. He starves her and he keeps her awake and he yells at her and he does all of these things in order to like break her. And what people think when they watch this, when they see this play, and you really don't get it unless like you've seen it in person, like them doing it Shakespeare style, it makes more sense. But what people fail to realize is that the husband's going through the same exact struggle that she is. Because in order to starve her, like he's throwing the food out, he's throwing dinner out, which includes his portion. If he's keeping her awake, he's staying awake to keep her awake. And so they're both going through this struggle. And at the end of the play, she comes back and she gives this whole monologue that everybody, like nowadays, people find really offensive. And she says this line where she says, like, basically, like, I put my hand beneath my husband's foot and allow him to step on it if he likes. And people are like, like pearl clutching, like, oh my God, like this is about like, you know, breaking this woman into subservience. And what she's saying is like, I know I can always put my hand under his foot because I know he'll never step on it. That's what she's saying. And that's like, that was like the energy of the shift that happened in our home, where it was like I was suddenly going with the intentions that I used to have in the beginning of dating, where I was like, I'm going to do these little things to cheer him up. Like yesterday, I was like, I'm going to surprise him and I'm going to like clean his whole bathroom. We have 2 different bathrooms. I was like, and there were beard hairs everywhere. It was really gross. There was like piss on the toilet seat. It was like nasty. And I was like, while he's teaching, like I'm going to come in there and like clean the whole thing top to bottom. Not because he told me to, not because I have to, not because I'm the woman, but I was like, I can't wait to see him get excited about this. And like, it just brought a totally different energy to it.
I really like, I love doing these interviews. I think I'm actually going to do a whole week of alumni interviews next week because they explode my heart so much, and I relearn so much from every woman that does Goddess Wife School. Like the whole pearl clutching thing, like I know that you saw the craziness of what was going on in my posts inside of the Women Helping Women Entrepreneurs group. There's a lot of pearl clutching out there, of like taking things at face value, or like, oh, you cleaned his bathroom, you cleaned his piss off your seat, like you know, like a lot of reactivity from, of course, all of the pain that we've been through, all of the burnout that we have, all of like the shitty relationships that we've had, all of the things set up in society not to support us. 100% that's out there. But those rules and that way of thinking when it comes to a relationship, we're just shooting ourselves in.
It creates competition.
We're just getting in our own way, where what you're talking about really, which is so fucking beautiful, I love seeing this in practice, is being co-creative, like showing up in your highest and best, pouring into his cup, knowing that he is going to show up in his highest and best and pour right back into yours. And so many women are afraid that they can't trust their man like that. They can't rely on him, that he won't show up because they've seen proof of the opposite. But how are we showing up in those situations where we're not getting what we really want or need? Like, where are we? Where is our energy? Where is our vulnerability? Like, what level of healing are we at? And how are we bringing that to our relationship? Like, this is, I wasn't expecting, like, I thought we were going to talk about sex and
yeah.
Beautiful what you're talking about, Jessie. This is, and for many women that are not in relationship, like the reason that this is Goddess Wife School, like it's not about being married, but there's a difference between the patriarchy and men and not doing things for no man versus your man and your relationship and what you're building together.
Yeah, 1,000%. And like, you know, I would say that, you know, there's a quote by Ruth Bader Ginsburg where she had said that the symbol of America shouldn't be like the bald eagle. Like, if anything, the symbol of America would be a pendulum, because she says that just as far as it'll swing in one direction, it'll swing right back. And so what we're seeing a lot right now with like the feminist movement, and it's necessary, it needs to be a part of this, is that, you know, because we've lived in one extreme for so long, it's swinging to the other side. And so it becomes like this very like, you know, anti, like, you know, and like really breaking down a lot of things that haven't served women as a society. But like, there's a big difference between society and your relationship, especially if you're in a relationship with like a man, really. Like, and I would say like cis hetero man, but you know, it's if he is somebody who traditionally identifies with like masculine energy, then like this is something that you need to understand, especially if you yourself also identify with like more feminine energy, because it's not going to be for everybody. And that's not the fucking point, is that it's for us. It's for like this subset of people, because there's a lot of cacophony out there about like, well, how do I live my life as a feminist? And then how do I show up and get what I want in my relationship as well? I mean, like, it's a tale as old as time for like women who are like, you know, I want to be like a badass bitch in the boardroom or the courtroom or whatever. And then I want my man to like push me up against a wall and like tear my clothes off. Like, you know, like you want things like that too, because those moments make you feel very womanly. And like, for somebody who wants to feel that, like it's not going to come natural when we spend all of our time, when we've spent most of our adult lives fighting against patriarchal power structures. Yeah. And it's also, we don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah. And we can feel unsafe and we can feel triggered. But remembering, right, like I always say that if in order to be in Goddess Wife School, like I need to know if you're in a relationship, because single women are totally welcome too. But if you're in a relationship, that you're in a relationship with a good man that you love, that loves you, that, yeah, sure, you have your shit and your things to figure out. But that the love is there, and that you remember that this is about the union that you have, the partnership that you want to co-create with this person. And as part of that, in any partnership, in any dynamic, there's your responsibility, your full responsibility, which again, can feel very triggering to people to realize, like, wait, you mean I'm part of creating this thing that I really don't enjoy? Like, wait, I have to take responsibility for, you know, the reality that's coming back at me, and like the way that boundaries or not, or how I communicate or not, or what the sex is like or not. Because it can be, right, it's so much easier to, I'm like thinking about the title of this live, and I feel like we deviated, but I'm so happy anyway that we did, because it's such an important conversation. Like, you know, and now I just totally lost my train of thought.
That's okay, because I was already thinking that what it does is it basically like creates the dynamic that you both want to speak the other person's love language. And that's like the big difference, is that it stops shifting from like, you need to speak my love language. My love language is this, and why aren't you speaking it? And being like, well, I'm going to start speaking their love language and just make the space for them to reciprocate. So for example, I mean, like, we're both, technically both of us have like the primary love language of like quality time, but in the age of a pandemic and 2 people working from home, we have too much. Like, okay, like and so quality time became less important to us, and our secondary love languages became more important. So for me, mine is words of affirmation is my number 2. And his number 2 was like physical touch. Like physical touch, acts of service, they're very close. But for me, it definitely words of affirmation. And him being like, you know, British, it's like, that's not normal. Like speaking about your feelings, like giving people, and he doesn't need validation like that from other people. He's just like, why do you need my approval? Why do you need my validation? Because I need it. I don't know why. I just need it. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like sometimes I'm like, are you talking about my relationship?
Yeah.
Right now? Like,
right. And so it's like, so when I'm looking at like, you know, the cleaning the bathroom, it's like I'm carrying that intention of him doing this so he'll get surprised, he'll feel loved. It's even the same thing when I make dinner. I love to cook, so this isn't a problem, but it's like, it can get like, I could, in the past, I would start getting annoyed, because it's like, well, I cook all the time. So why can't you do the dishes after I'm done? Because he hates dirty dishes and I hate putting clean dishes away. I don't know why. I like gross stuff. So I love cleaning bathrooms and dirty dishes. They're disgusting and they're satisfying and I love it. So I'm like, well, why can't he do it once in a while? Like, I'm the one who's cooking all the time. And it's like, I started losing focus of the fact that like, I love cooking. Like, I love to cook. It's a passion. And so when I'm carrying the intention of like, he feels so loved when I cook for him, he feels so loved, like when I'm like making a concerted effort to keep our space clean, and he feels loved when I touch him. So like, you know, he's like I started doing, this is so funny because so much of this sounds like very housewifey, because it's like when he was done with class,
I want to talk about that. It is funny because first, everyone that's watching, like, we're business owners. We're
and like,
and we're not housewives, you know,
right?
Like,
Yeah,
and it's not about doing housewife things.
No,
like,
it's not. It's like, yeah. And, you know, if somebody's husband loves cooking, this isn't going to be an example that works, like, right? Because he loves doing that. So let him do it.
Right.
But for him, it's like what felt really good for him were like those kind of acts of service. And then I started doing a little ritual for us to connect at the end of the evening, where I was like, when you're done with class, I'll give you a little shoulder rub. That's it. Like, because I know he needs physical touch. And what was amazing was that in the meantime, because he would have very concerned that he wasn't getting like the words of affirmation right, and he wasn't, I'm going to be honest, because he was like, good job. And I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I need compliments. I need you to tell me I'm beautiful, like every 5 minutes, please. So I started, it's like, so I was, I just got this little like funny little inspiration where every time he said something sweet to our cat that I wished he would say to me, I would just say, oh, thank you. Like pretend he was saying it to me. He'd be like, you're so beautiful. And I'd be like, thank you. Thank you. I am. Like, I really appreciate that. And he would laugh at first, but he started catching on. He was like, oh, okay, these are the things I need to say to her, you know? Or he'd be like, she's too smart for her own good. And I'd be like, thank you. I am.
Oh my God, I love you. I'm going to do this with my husband and our toddler now. What a fucking genius hack. But
it's
like,
amazing. Yeah.
This is what I want to pull out, right? Like, there's one way that we can look at what Jessie is talking about, what you're talking about, and saying like, what the fuck, right? But what you're talking about right now is about energy. Like, you are working with energy in such a high level right now, where you realize, and if anyone's watching, I want to, give you this realization too, that extra pressure, shoulds, obligations, micromanaging, like giving instructions, like trying to force, there's always going to have the opposite effect, whether it's about making money, right? It never works. Like, and if some of you are trying this in your relationships and it's not working, like, this is the reason why. There's another way to do it. And what Jessie's doing, which is so brilliant, right, is you're actually finding things, the way that you're working with your energy is by making yourself feel good. Right? Like you're bringing humor to the situation. You're doing things around the house that you like and that you enjoy. Like you're creating rituals, which is something that you're so fucking badass at and that you know how to work with and with energy and in your relationship and in your business. Like you're doing it for yourself and with yourself. Like you're activating the love energy, the turn on energy, and not the obligation or the destructive energy or the supposed to kind of energy. And that's the crucial little difference. Whether whoever's watching, again, because it's funny that we're talking about cooking and cleaning, because it's not about fucking cooking and cleaning.
No, exactly. It could easily be like, if we were in a home, it could just as easily be like, I'm the one who does the gardening, I'm the one who takes care of the yard, or I'm mowing the lawn. Like it could be something that's traditionally masculine as well. Like it doesn't matter what the actions are. It's just about like the intentions behind them. And the amazing thing is that the shift was immediate. So it was like 3 days after I wrote that intention list where I was like, he comes back and he buys me a latte. He literally had gone out early that morning, and it was literally 3 days later. He went out early in the morning, came back and woke me up with a latte from Starbucks. It was like literally that fast. And I was like, what? All I have to do is think it and it's going to happen.
Yes.
Surprise. And then like 2 weeks later, like, cause my business had always been like a point of contention with us. And like you had encouraged me to stop seeing it as like, oh, he has scarcity mindset. You were like, think about his conditioning. His conditioning has been like to be a breadwinner and to like think about the security of your home and make sure everyone's cared for. And when I started looking at it as like, okay, he's not scarce. He's just he wants to make sure that we are all cared for in this home. Me, him, and this cat are all going to be like happy and healthy. And that's what matters. And so when I started thinking about like him expressing concerns in that way, it made me change my language of how I spoke to him about everything. Because I realized, okay, he's not looking at it through a scarcity mindset lens. He's looking at it through a security mindset lens. And so what I need to speak to is the security aspect. And then two, it just changed the way I looked at when we disagreed or had conflict around my business or around my money habits. I just stopped seeing it as like him attacking me and seeing it as like him just like wanting to make sure that I was cared for. So like if things weren't going well, it wasn't coming from a place of him being like, give this up, it's me or this business. He was saying like, if you don't have measures in place to like make sure that like we're cared for, like what's the plan after that? Because I deserve to feel like secure as well.
Yes.
And like when I had that perspective shift, like we hadn't even argued, we haven't even talked about it. It was just like I just saw it differently. And I had just made this internal shift where I was like, that's what he's really concerned about. And so I'm not going to get defensive over things anymore because I know that it's not about me. And I know that he doesn't love me or doesn't want me to pursue this. He just wants to make sure that everybody, including me, are like very safe and healthy. Yeah. And when I had that was like when 2 weeks later, it was our anniversary and Valentine's Day are really close together. So we combine them into one. And so he had gotten me a gift that was this awesome print, which I had, he wound up getting it framed. It's over there. And it's like all these like naked ladies, like flying in the sky. And they're like, it's called Witches Heading to Their Sabbath. So it's like a bunch of like witches flying in the air. One's like riding a goat and like, it's just naked ladies up in the sky. And he was like, and he said to me, I thought this would look so cool on lives if it was like hung behind you, like people would be like want to tune in because they'd be like, what is that painting? And like when I say that like touched my heart like so deeply, I was like, this is him showing support for my business. It just changed how I saw everything he did.
That's right. That's right. It's shocking to me, right? And I do my own work through this. One of the reasons I love Goddess High School is I keep putting my relationship through that washing machine and going deeper and loving more. It's just how conditioned we are to see our man as an enemy. Like to see him, to like expect the worst from him, to be the most critical of him, to think that what he's doing is anti us, when we totally forget, like, why would our own partner wish ill for us? Why? Of course our partner wants the best. Of course he wants us to be like freaking loaded and have successful businesses and feel turned on and happy all the time. And for him to be able to be like the source of that, like, of course that's a huge light up thing for him, especially as a man as well. But we forget that because we see this narrative reinforced over and over and over again about men. And again, it's not that, you know, there aren't terrible relationships, terrible men. There aren't those moments in all of our lives. Like, most of us have had those experiences, but we're bringing that into our relationships today unnecessarily. And when we get triggered, right, for whatever, because we're insecure about our businesses also, because we're insecure about different things, because we need love, because we need affirmation. And when we don't get it in exactly the way that our inner child is demanding for it, the stories start to come up. And that's why really the way that I look at this is like, this is grown woman shit that we're doing. You know, it isn't just about like pussy and just getting exactly what we want right away. And like, only, you know, this is my manifestation and this is the only thing that'll make me happy. Like, this is about really connecting like your heart and your deeper wisdom to your pussy when you join forces with a partner. And just, you know, for the sake of this conversation and the work that I'm doing, your masculine partner, your man, that is a huge opportunity that so many of us are missing in our relationships. And just all we're focusing on is like you said, the tit for tat. I did this chore. What did you do? You didn't do this good enough. Instead of this other opportunity that we really have when we join forces together. And I know we can talk about this forever. You guys, everyone that's watching, I promise we will do more conversations with Jessie, because you're like, I love learning through talking about this too. Can we tell the people the juicy, sexy stuff?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
like the people that are like, but what about this sex? Like what about like the sexual energy? What about the money? What are you excited to share? Or what would you like to brag about with that?
Yeah, so like I will talk about the lazy lover method, because it was like such an instant change, and it's like so funny. So like when I learned that method, like I literally went to the live class, and like literally I think like before it even ended. So I tuned in, and you know, I'm in a bathrobe now. For that class, I was naked. I was literally like sitting on my couch. I was on my period, feeling like terrible. I was having some of the worst cramps ever. And I was just like laying there naked, sweating, hadn't showered in like a day or two. And I was just like, I just got to tune in, because like things are just kind of feeling a little stale, you know? And while I was like, first of all, before the class even ended, he came over to me, or maybe it was right after, maybe I messaged you after, but we did like the activity, and literally right after, he came up to me, totally spontaneous, came up to me, kissed me, told me, like gave me a good kiss, told me I smelled good. And he was like, look at you, you naked Venus. And it was like literally the best compliment I've ever gotten. I was like,
right, words of affirmation, right?
Right? What? Yeah, and it's funny because it's like I use it like even when the next time I used it was like a day, like once I was like off my period a day or two later and I was feeling up to it. I woke up before him and I was just sitting in bed and I like did the activity and I was like, I just like really want to like, you know, connect sexually today. And so I was laying in bed and I did the meditation. He literally like woke up and like came on to me, which he hasn't done in like that's like not a normal activity for him. He was just like up and ready to go. And I was like, yes, okay, it worked.
Right? And this is an example, right? It's so counterintuitive. Like you didn't tell him what to do. You didn't tell him how to be. You didn't even tell him what you were doing. This is when, you know, the reason that this round of Goddess Wife School is called Elevated is because I'm teaching a lot more embodiment practices and rituals and energetic activations, which I'm, as a somatic therapist, like this is the stuff that I'm doing in my life and with all my one-on-one clients. And it's just amazing how much power we have in us to inspire what we want to show up instead of the logical ways that we were taught of pushing, organizing, instructing, just having to like be on top of everything all the time, that just don't feel good for us anyway, right? And then that's like the opposite, because this is all a cycle, right? This is all a cycle. And if any woman that's watching, like, you're struggling with something and you don't like it, that is your opportunity to start to show up different in that cycle, start to create something else in the dynamic. And yeah, I like instant results, you know? So
I know.
Right.
And it's like, literally, like, we sit here and we think about, like, well, I want to be the one that I want him to like push me up against a wall and like rip open my, you know, my clothes or whatever. I'm like, I want him to dominate me in bed. I want him to like do whatever. And then it's like, but then we act in a way where people would be scared to do that. Like, they'd be scared to. And we have to keep in mind that just as much as we're sitting there saying like, oh, I wish he would like do something like that, be a little rough, or be a little be a little like, you know, put me in my place kind of thing. We might sit there and say that we want those things sexually. He wants the same thing, meaning like he wants to feel like a man, and he wants to be like, oh, I just want to push her up against the wall. I want to feel really manly. And it's really hard for someone to feel manly if you are emasculating them all the time and telling them what to do and telling them how you want it done. Like, you can't be a bossy sub. Like, it just doesn't.
I call that a lot of bossy bottom. That's what I got.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be a bossy bottom. Like, there's like, if you want to be like experiencing that, if you're like, I want to feel petite and feminine, and I want him, and I want to like feel like, you know, like he's powerful. Well, you're not going to like shame him there. Like, that's just not gonna, like, nobody feels empowered when they're, or like sexy or manly.
And I want to say for anyone that's watching, this isn't about subservience, right?
No.
This isn't about like, you know, that your man is the only one in charge and you just have to like follow his lead. But what this is truly an invitation for yourself to actually just be what you really want, and like make choices that actually make you feel luscious and sensual and turned on and juicy and in flow, which are not only great for your relationship, but they're also how you want to be in your business, and when you're talking to clients, and when you're like putting together programs or contracts or taking pictures, or like, that's the energy that we all want to be in. And we can train that with our partners, because it feels good for us, and it also feels good for him too.
Right. It's like, you know, I'm not even like fully into BDSM, but like, you know, even just the understanding that like a dom who's calling the shots and like, you know, doing all of that, well, not necessarily calling the shots, they're still responding to the cues from the sub. Like, the sub has all the power, and the dom is enacting everything. But even at the end, after they've like inflicted all this pain, you're going to go and have aftercare. Right. So then you have that gentleness. And like women, like when we're talking about like media and all the things that we see, like, I'm a big fan of these, like, they're the trashiest, like they're the most outlandish romance novels. They make no sense. It's all about like time traveling virgins who go back to like the Highlands of Scotland. They make no sense. The plots make no sense. Okay. But all the sex scenes are really good. So, but like, the men in romance novels are always super manly and also super woke on feminism, right? It's like, they're always like, yeah, you can be your own woman and I respect your choices. And also, I'm going to like, you know, fuck you up against like some in some alleyway. You know what I mean? Like, there's always this like balance, and we have this idea that like that's not realistic. And maybe it's because we've been disappointed so many times that it's like hard to break that habit of expectation. But like, your man is a multifaceted person, and if you can be like sexy and intellectual, if you can be like, you know, if you can be like soft and feminine and also a bad bitch, then like, he's just as capable of being both things as well. And it's all about what space you allow him to occupy.
But a lot of women, and I'll raise my hand, until I started doing this work myself, I didn't know how to be soft and feminine. And that softness was equated with weakness and vulnerability. And if I was in that position, the expectation was bad things would happen. Bad things would happen to me. Bad things, you know, people would take advantage of me. And again, that we have to unplug ourselves from that normalized narrative out there. And it's not that bad things don't happen. Of course they do. But take a look at your life. Take a look at your relationship, this container that you've co-created with somebody. Are you willing to start to utilize that container, not just so that you're not lonely when you go to bed at night, but so that you can start to really like train yourself and heal yourself and find that safety and find that trust and learn how healing and sexy also feels to finally lean back and feel someone, your partner, choosing to hold you up, like choosing to be that structure for you. So many of us don't know how to do that. So many of us don't think that it's possible to, but just because you don't see it out there, right? That's why I have this group. That's why I've Goddess Wife School. That's why I'm doing this talk with Jessie, to normalize a different way, a different kind of future of relationships between men and women.
And that's like, you know, just bringing it back to like simple manifestation. Like if you have a receiving block where you're just like unable to accept the love from your man or unable to ask people for help or whatever it is, they're usually connected. And like, you're going to manifest a situation where you're required to lean on somebody else for help. And a lot of times, if you're a business owner, that looks like running out of money. And so if you really do not feel like you can let go and receive from your man, like you will manifest a situation in which you're required to, because part of you is craving that. Part of you is craving for someone to take care of you. And sometimes the way that you manifest it is by running out of money. So he has to come to your rescue, which is not the way you really want him to come to your rescue. And it's not the way he wants to come to your rescue. And then it just feeds into the problem, when in actuality, it's a subconscious manifestation of something you actually wanted. You just got it in the wrong way.
Listen to the scientist. Listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. Yeah, it's so fucking true. I'm just like, you know, while you're talking, I'm thinking about my relationship and this spiral of learning that keeps happening and this like deepening. It's why I was showing Jessie, I have my snake pendant on this week. Like when I launched Goddess Wife School, I go through so much holding like all this energy, all this space for so many women. And it gets magnified by what is going on in my relationship. And it becomes this opportunity for me and my husband to like go deeper into our love, because he challenges the fuck out of me, because he doesn't want me to have a business that gives me anxiety, that stresses me out, that makes me feel depleted, that makes me feel unbalanced. And for so long, that was the only way that I knew how to run my business. Like famously, the first time I launched Goddess Wife School, I literally told my husband, sorry, I can't be your wife or a mom this week because I'm launching. Crazy to run a relationship program and be still so stuck in that mentality of I can't have both. I can't be both. There's not enough time. I have to hustle. I don't have enough energy for anything else. And I just feel so lucky. That's why I started Goddess Wife School, because I learned that his no and his challenges were these opportunities for me to do more of what I wanted anyway, and like to not set things up for myself in a way that suck and that make me feel like a victim and make me feel depleted and make choices that aren't good for me and also not good for my family as well. So so good. So good. Jessie, oh my God, we're already at like 43 minutes. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to add or share with everybody that's watching?
No, I think we covered it all.
Girl, I want to talk to you forever. I love Goddess Wife School. Literally, these are the kinds of conversations that we have inside of Goddess Wife School. They're so deep, so transformative. And I also want to shout out to Jessie, who is my self-proclaimed laziest pupil inside of Goddess Wife School.
I want to stress to you guys, I did the bare minimum. I was not diligent. I did not I think I watched like part of the modules. All I did was like show up for like 3 calls. I was like on vacation for the other half, and all of these results happened with that bare minimum of effort.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to absolutely do another live and have you back on. I want to talk to you more about all of this. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. Registration for Goddess Wife School is open right now. It's at goddesswifeschool.com. We start on Monday, which is super fucking exciting. And you can message me if you're curious about a VIP spot with one-on-one support. Otherwise, just go to goddesswifeschool.com and get your butt in there. I hope that Jessie, you know, I love this theory of expanders, like witnessing people that are living a truth or reality that maybe we're not necessarily in yet, but they're expanding our belief for like what's possible. And Jessie is such an example of that. You know, I have also had this experience too of feeling like a platonic roommate or like living my life side by side with my partner, but never really feeling like we could really join forces in the most powerful way and build what we really want to together. And I'm just so psyched for you that that you have that in your relationship. And I know I've seen it reflected in your business success and your money making. And I know that his support of you behind the scenes is so much a part of that. And will you please in the group upload a picture of that beautiful print that he got you? I never.
Oh my God, yeah, I
share
will.
it with us in the group. And yeah, I think we'll let it end here. Thanks to everybody in the comments. If you know a woman that might be struggling with this, that needs more support from her man, might be having receiving blocks, money blocks in her business, or getting support blocks from her man, share this video with her, tag her, or send her to goddesswifeschool.com.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jessie.
Anytime.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.